What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? Hey, happy New Year 2022, y'all. Oh my goodness. Hey, I woke up this morning and we had snow falling here in Auburn, Alabama. It's kind of raining now. It was soft snow. It snowed from like 8 a.m. to almost noontime. But it was soft snow. It didn't stick. So you can't even tell. It doesn't even look like it. But we did get some snowfall. So I'm guessing in other places with higher elevation, they probably got some to stick. So, anyways, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So your boy coming here to get some things off his chest. To talk to this one. This one is actually be kind of to my family, but it's something to my family that I want the world, I want my friends and the world to kind of see. I'm gonna grow you guys a little bit. I'm gonna grow you. I'm gonna, give you some insight into who I am, and how I think and what I believe. Not too long ago, not too long ago, I was sitting around with a couple buddies of mine, and like always, we talk about life, love, relationships, how society is, how things are different than what things used to be. And we would, as always, we're talking about how women are different than what women used to be. And so naturally that's me. I'm saying how women have changed, how women are not, what women were back in the day, you know. And so naturally my boys, they always got to one up me. They always got to try and one up me by saying, well, men are not the same either. I said, nah. I said, I would venture to say that there are more men that are like what men used to be than there are women that are like what they used to be. And naturally, my boys, they had to say, well, I'm not like, my dad. I'm not like my grandfather. They're speaking of themselves. They were saying, well, they're not like their dad. They're not like their grandfather. That they're completely different. And I said, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Most of my boys got kids by several different women. They got most of my partners got several baby mamas. Their dads only had one baby mama. Their grandfathers only had one baby mama. So yeah, they correct that they're not like their dad and grandfathers. But me, on the other hand, I'm just like my grandfathers. I'm everything my grandfathers were. And you know what? That's probably because my grandfathers raised me. I was raised by both my grandfathers. See, in my family, it's a I'm a little of a I was about to say anathema, but I'm just a little different. I had a different upbringing than most people. So, my parents were kids when they had me. My parents were 15 years old when they had me. So my parents were kids. My parents never married. They were kids when they married me. You know, and on my dad's side, you know, I call my dad what his dad and his mother called him. I call my dad what his siblings called him, which is Emil. My dad's dad called him Emil. My dad's mother called him Emil. My dad's brothers and sisters called him Emil. So I called him Emil too. My dad was like a big brother to me. Now don't take that as me shading my dad, disrespecting my. I mean, I love my dad. That's my man. I love my dad. Don't never get that twisted. And I'll go to war for him. I'll fight for my dad. But the fact is, my dad had no part in raising me. His dad raised me. My dad was like my big brother to me. Just like I said, I called my dad what his parents called him and what his siblings called him. Well, I called my dad what he called his parents. I called my dad what his siblings called his parents. All right? So let me start that again. So not only did I call my dad what his parents called him, I called, you know, my dad's siblings what he called his siblings and what his parents called his siblings. I called them by their names. Called them by their name. My granddad called his children by their names. I called his children by their names. My grandmother called my dad and his children by their name. I called my dad and his children by their names. Now, on the flip side of that, I called my grandparents the same thing my dad and his siblings called them. My dad and his siblings called their mother Medea. I called my grandmother Medea. My dad and his siblings called his dad Daddy. I called my dad and his siblings Daddy as well, because that's what he was to me. They were all like brothers and sisters to me. That's how I grew up. I'm the only grandchild that grew up that way because I was raised by them. I was raised in the house. I had a special relationship with my grandfather and my grandmother. That's just on my dad's side. And on my mom's side, it was the exact same way. I called my mother's father the same thing she and her siblings called her father. I called my mother's mother the same thing she and her siblings called her mother. I called my mother the same things her dad called her and her siblings. I called my mother the same thing her mother called her and her siblings. I called them by their names. My dad's name is Emil. That's what his dad called him. His mother called him Emil. His brothers and sisters called him Emil. I called my dad Emil. My mother's dad called her Linda. My mother's mother called her Linda. Her brothers and sisters called her Linda. I called her Linda too. Up until I was about 8 years old, when my two little sisters, started coming to me and, they stand in front of me and they grab my mouth. They tell me, don't stop, don't say Linda. And they do my mouth, say mama, say mama. That's my two little sisters would tell me, don't say Linda, say mama. I was nearly 8 years old when I started calling my mom ma. So I called her mama mama. So my mom called her mama mama. I called my mom and her brothers and sisters called their mother mama. I called her mama too. My mom and her sisters, her brothers and sisters called their dad daddy. I called their dad daddy too, because I grew up in that house. I was raised by my grandparents, by my grandfather and on both sides. So that's different for me. I'm the only grandchild on either side like this. On either side. On my dad's side, my grandparents only had boys. On my mother's side, my grandparents had boys, girls, and boys. Crap load, So, but I'm the only one that got this particular relationship because I was raised in both houses. My dad and mother were like brother and sister to me. They didn't raise me. They don't get credit for raising me. They know that. They can see this video and they know that. They won't come here and challenge what I'm saying. Now, don't take me wrong. My mother is my number one lady. That's what. So if you guys will see me posting, you'll see number one lady all the time. And you'll see me tag her name. That's who she is to me. My number one lady. She's my mom. If my mother and her mother would be in the kitchen, and I walk in and I say, "Mama, can I?" Only one of them turned around and said, yes or no. Go. Only one of them. So hear me out. If mom, and still to this day, my grandmother is in her 90s. She's the only, grandparent that I have left. My mother and my mother, she's still here. She's in her 90s. If she's in that kitchen, and my mother is in that kitchen with her, if I walk in and say, "Mama," only one of them turns around and says, "Yes." That's only one. So, anyway. When my boys were telling me about, how they different, I pointed out to them, well, I was really close to my grandfathers. I was really close to my grandfathers, you know, and I spent a lot of time alone with both my grandfathers. And it was interesting, man. When I grow up, my grandfathers would have talks with me. My grandfathers would have talks with me. And what was strange is if one grandfather would talk to me about something, a few days later, a couple of weeks later, the other grandfather would talk to me about the exact same thing. And as a kid, I kind of learned that that was God's way of talking to me. God was talking through my grandfathers to me. Because I used to think to myself, man, do my grandfathers kick it? Do my grandfathers like call on the phone? Because I never saw my grandfathers hang out. Never saw my grandfathers standing around chopping it up. Like if, I can post pictures of me as a baby and as a little boy with both my grandmothers in the picture with me. One of them holding me, and they both standing in the picture with me. You know, or I can show you pictures of, you know, one set of grandparents holding me as a baby. Or, you know, I'm in a picture with, you know, one set of my grandparents. But never am I in a picture with both sets of grandparents or with both granddads. But I am in pictures with both grandmothers. I have pictures with both my grandmothers in the pictures together. Old black and white pictures, you know. So I know that my grandmothers talk once in a while. But I never knew my grandfathers to chop it up or to, like, you know, hang out and talk to each other. So it always made me wonder, you know, if one grandfather talked to me about something, a few days later, a few weeks later, the other grandfather talked to me about the exact same thing. And I'd wonder, man, are they talking to each other? Are they like on the phone, like calling each other, you know, are they visiting, you know, each other and having discussions about me? Because how are they both telling me the same thing? You know, I've grown up in a house with my mother's dad, you know, and, you know, little girls was always calling me through grade school, middle school, you know, on up until I left, you know, right when I was getting into high school. I left home when I was in high school. So, but yeah, you know, I'd be on the sofa talking to little girls. This back when, before, you know, call waiting. It's back when, you know, you called, you know, on the phone, and the phone went bump, 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 if somebody was on the phone, you know. So I'd tie up the phone. I'd be laying there on the sofa, my granddad in his rocking chair, watching baseball. And my granddad hear me everything I'm saying to these little girls. He hear me. He hear his son. He hear his grandson over here macking. I get off the phone with little girls, and my grandpa, you know, he noticed it'd be different little girls. You know, in the course of a day, I'd be talking to different little girls. There'd be different little girls come by the house, you know, for me to come outside. So my granddad, you know, when I get off the phone, he'd tell me, hey, come sit down. I want to talk to you. My granddad would tell me, you know, I see you like girls a lot, and they like you a lot. My granddad would tell me, don't mess up their lives. Don't mess their lives up. You know. And I would wonder if my granddad trying to tell me something about my own dad without, you know, if he, like, is my granddad telling me basically don't do what my dad did. Since my dad was only 15 and my mom was only 15, they got pregnant. Was my granddad, like, you know, telling me don't do the same thing? He never said it straight out like that, but he just tell me, you know, he see that I like these girls like me, that don't mess up any of their lives. That's what he would tell me. Don't mess up my life and don't mess up any of their lives. I heard him. I heard him loud and clear. And not only did I hear him, but I knew that my granddad, he chose times when we were alone, when it'd be just me and him in the house, to talk to me. So that would tell me that I knew that that conversation was for me and him. Okay, my granddad is gone now. Both my granddads are long gone. So I can tell you guys about stuff. My family, this is the first time they're hearing about this. They've never heard this from me. In over 50 years, I've never uttered these words till now. My granddad would tell me stuff like that. Then weeks, a few days or weeks later, I'd be with my other granddad. We sit in the den. My granddad, you know, watching TV. He'd turn the TV down and he'd say, hey, I want to talk to you about something. You know, because I'd be in the living room. My granddad be in his den. I'd be in the living room. I'd be on the phone. Like girls would call late at night, 11, 12 o'clock at night. My grandparents would go to bed at 10. They hit the phone. They had a phone in their bedroom. You know, I try to sneak in their room before they go to bed and turn the ringer off. You know, so sometimes I forget. So if my granddad and my grandmother in their bed, they sleep. They got the little phone that you drop on top. And they be in their bed. The phone ring at 11 o'clock. And the phones rang loud back then. So I hurry and answer the phone. And my granddad and my grandmother would pick up the phone in their room. They realize it's a girl calling. They just hang up the phone. They never said nothing to me. They just hang the phone up. So they grandson getting calls from girls all hours of the night. So they go to bed. So my granddad, what? Now I get off the phone with a girl. He called me into the den and tell me to sit down. He want to talk to me. And I'm talking. This is a few days of, to maybe a couple weeks later. The exact same conversation the other granddad told me. I see you got these girls calling here late at night. Well, I tell you what, I don't know if you're doing anything with them yet, but what I will tell you is don't mess up your life and don't mess up their life. You hear me? You hear what I'm telling you? Yes, sir. I hear you. Don't mess up your life and don't mess up their life. Both my grandfathers would tell me this. Can't no woman say I messed up their life. Can't no female out here say I messed up their life. Both my grandfathers would say to me, whatever girl I choose, take her places. Give her a good life. They would tell me, when that day come and I choose me a girl, to give her a good life, to take her places. I like to think that I honored what my grandfather, both of them, asked me to do. My grandfathers gave me a mission. My grandfathers told me the kind of man they wanted me to be. They were basically telling me to be like them. They were basically telling me, both my grandfathers got married before they had children. I got married before I had children. Both my grandfathers only have children with one woman. I got children with only one woman. So let me say that again. Both my grandfathers had children with only one woman. Both my grandfathers had children after they were married. I followed in their footsteps. Now my dad had children by a couple different women. Had boys by a couple different women that he never married. I didn't follow in my dad's footsteps. My mother had a few children by different men that she wasn't married to. I didn't follow in my mother's footsteps. I did what my grandparents did, just like my grandfathers told me to do it. I honored what my grandfathers asked me to do. My grandfathers also told me to provide for the woman. When I choose a woman, to provide. To be a provider. To be good to them. To never hit them, to never abuse them, to never put them down, to never yell at them. I can say I've honored my grandfathers well. Not one of my wives can say I ever put them down. Not one of my wives can ever say that I ever hit them. Not one of my wives can ever say that I misused them. Not one of my wives can say that I didn't provide a home for them. See, I parted oceans. I parted oceans and moved continents for my 3 wives. I took my wives from one place, put them across an ocean to another place that was better than each one of my wives. If they were here when they met me, they were here when we split. If not, here. So you understand that? Each one of my wives, if they were right here when they met me, they didn't leave and they were still right there. Each one of my wives, if they met me and they were right here when we split, they were here. I might still be right there, but they were here. Each one of them, if they wasn't way up here. Each one of my wives. I did what my grandfathers told me to do. I honored my grandfather's memories. I was the man my grandfathers asked me to be. Because my grandfathers was asking me to be like them. No shade to my dad and my mother. No disrespect to them. But I did what my grandfathers asked me to do. My mother's father had a 3-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. My mother's father had a 3-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. You guys, you would have to ask, my family, how many children my grandparents had in that 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, and how many grandkids came through that 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. That house my grandmother is, my grandmother that's in her 90s, she is still in that same house with the 3 same bedrooms and 1 bathroom. She has had 6 generations come through that house. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. That same house, same neighborhood, same street, same spot, 1 house. My grandmother was satisfied with the home that my grandfather provided for her and their children. That's my mother's father, Leslie Hills. My dad's father had a 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. They had, half as many kids as my mother's parents. My dad's parents had exactly half as many as they had, but they had a 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. They raised half as many kids in a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom house. My dad is still in that same house today. On the same street, same neighborhood, same street, same spot. Now, when I was nearing teenage years, my granddad, he decided to put a den on that house and another bathroom. So he built a den on that house and another bathroom, and then he bricked that house up. So he made it really nice. He bricked that house up, made it pretty, made it nice. It was probably one of the nicest houses on the block when my granddad got done with it. Paved the yard, cut down trees I used to play in, all kind of stuff. And I sat in the yard watching my granddad do it with his own hands. I was right there watching him do it with his own hands. My grandmother was satisfied to raise multiple kids in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house that later got a den added on. By that time, her kids were grown. By that time, that's the house I grew up in. I grew up in both those houses. Both my grandfathers said to me, provide for the woman that I choose. I'm in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and I'm here alone. But I've always provided a home for the woman that I'm with, and certainly for the woman that I'm with that had children for me. I've always provided a comfortable home, a nice area of town, nice neighborhoods. I've always provided for the women that I've been with. I'm every bit of what my grandfathers asked me to be. I'm every bit of the man my grandfathers asked me to be. Now, my grandfathers were military and working class men, active in sports. I'm the exact same. Military, working class man, extremely active in all sports. Just like my grandfathers. Military, working class, blue collar. A man that works with his hands. A man that does physical work. I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house I'm living in alone. I've always provided for the women that I've been involved with. I've always offered them a home in a nice, see how quiet it is? You can hear the rain, you can hear the rain falling. Nice neighborhoods where they ain't got to worry about crime and violence. They ain't got to worry about pedophiles and rapists. They ain't got to worry about gang bangers and drug dealers. They ain't got to worry about neighbors fist fighting and cussing each other out, slamming doors and busting out glass, cutting tires. Nah, I ain't never had any one of my wives in an area like that. My children don't know that. I'm every bit of what my grandfathers asked me to be. My grandfathers raised me. Both of them raised me to be the man I am today. I followed in their footsteps. So if I ever meet them again, they're going to look at me and say, well done. Well done. When they look back on my life, well done. Both my granddads asked me, stay out of trouble. Don't bring shame on your family. I've done well. I've done well. Can't nobody recount any shame that I brought on my wife or children or my wives. See, my name is gold in these streets. On any pavement that I walked on, my name is gold. Can't nobody say anything bad about me. That's substantial. That's tangible. Can't nobody say anything that's substantial or that's tangible, negative about me. Both my grandfathers would tell me, don't be a follower. Don't get out here and don't follow behind these other males. Don't be in. I did the opposite. I got out here and I'm a leader. Everywhere I've gone in my life, everywhere from grade school all the way through the military to every job I've ever had. Everywhere I've gone, I've been in the leadership. I've taken on leadership roles. Tell you what, throughout school, throughout all my years of school, from grade school all the way through university, through college and university, if I was in a group of people and those group of people were doing something, when the faculty came along and had to call somebody out, they instantly called my name out. Antonio, Tony, Anthony, get over here. Because they knew I was leading the pack. They knew I wasn't following anybody. They automatically knew if I'm in that group and that group is doing something, that I'm behind it, that I'm the reason that group is doing it. God, don't ask me how, but they were right every time. All the way through college, it was that way. If I'm in a group of guys and they doing something, Tony is the reason for it. Tony is the reason behind it. I got in the military. In basic. If the cadre come around and see a group of guys, see a platoon, a bunch of guys doing something, and I'm in that group, Hills, get your ass on down, Hills. Get on down. Drop, Hills. Get up here, Hills. Drop. Yeah, we know you. We know you behind this, Hills. We know you leading the pack. We know you leading the pack because you ain't following nobody, Hills. You ain't following nobody. And that's been the truth. That's been the whole truth all my life. All my life. Heck, my first and third wife called a couple of my buddies, called a couple of my male friends, my other wife. My first and third wife called a couple of my male friends my other wife. See, I ain't never had nobody refer to me as one of my male friends' other wife. Ain't nobody ever put me in that position. Ain't nobody ever said to me, even said about me to one of my friends, oh, that's your other wife, call it. Nah, that can't be said about me. See, I don't go running to my friends' doors. I don't call up my friends. They come running to my door. They call me up. It's always been that way. It's going to always be that way. I lived up to what my grandfathers asked me to be. I'm the man. They asked me. So when my buddy said, oh man, men are not the same, I said, yeah, y'all not the same, but I am. I'm everything my grandfathers asked me to be. I'm just like them. Kids by one woman, married by, and my kids by a woman I was married to. I provide a home, always. I've always had a home for myself and the woman that I'm going to be with. I've always been a provider. Oh, the problem is finding a woman that's like my grandmother's. See, both my grandfathers honored their marriages. Both my grandmothers stayed with my grandfathers till their end, till death did them part. Both my grandmothers stayed with their husbands till death did them part. See, I never heard my grandfathers yell at my grandmothers. Never heard my grandfathers raise their voices. Damn sure never saw my grandfathers hit my grandmothers. I was the same way. Never raised my voices at my wives. Damn sure never hit them. Y'all can look at me and know me hitting any one of my non-black wives. Nah, this brother ain't never been to jail. Hell, if they had just said I hit him and cops showed up, they'd have locked my ass up. So y'all know that didn't happen. So nah, I ain't never raised, never cussed at, never put them down. Ever. Did nothing short of just elevating them. Did nothing short of elevating them. And you know what? If you look at my 3 ex-wives, they are exactly where they are. They have only gotten as far as I took them. They haven't budged a millimeter further than where I took them to. Not one of them. They're either right where I left them, or they've devolved, they've digressed, they've gone in reverse. Not one of them has accomplished more without me than they did with me. But here I am out here doing the same thing I've always been doing. Always keeping a home, always being employed gainfully, always with a big handsome smile, pretty hair, pretty beard, always looking nice, looking good, smelling good, having a great time. Always meeting beautiful women. Because that's what I do. It's what my grandfathers asked me to do. I'm every bit of who my grandfathers were. And I stand on that. I stand on that. I'm every bit who my grandfathers asked me to be. And there's not a family member who can come here and say otherwise. There's not a family member, there's not a friend, there's not anybody who can come here and say otherwise. Yeah, when my grandfathers would talk to me, I knew that what they were talking to me about, they meant for it to be just between me and them. And that's why I take, when somebody talk to me about something, I take it serious. So say to yourself, tell me the time you talked to me about something and somebody came to you and told you about something that you talked to me about. Tell me about the time that you talked to me about something and then somebody else came to you and talked to you about the very thing that you talked to me about. Can't nobody say that. Can't nobody on this earth say that about me. And that's what I learned with my grandfathers. Don't ask me how, it was just in me. When they would talk to me, they always talked to me alone. And they always told me what they wanted for me, how they wanted me to be, what they wanted me to do with my life. And I went on to do that. And I'm going to keep doing it till they lay me down. I'm going to keep doing it. Because I know I've made James Porter and Leslie Hill extremely proud of the man that I am. Extremely proud. I know both my grandmothers are extremely proud of the man that I am. I know both of them are extremely proud of the man they raised me to be. They're extremely proud of how I provide, just like my granddad has provided for them. So yeah, that's my message for y'all. That's what I came here to talk about. You know, so yeah, my buddies were like, yeah, men are just not the same. Well, my buddies are not the same like the men of old, but I am. I just can't find a woman that's like the women of old that want to stick it out. One God, one mind, one heart, one love, one people. One more time. One God, one mind, one heart, one love, one people. Till next time, y'all.